Okay, we want to talk about the event editor within Vizrt 5. I'm going to go ahead and open up a scene here because what we want to do is create an animation. I'm going to use this cube just to create a quick position animation. So I'm going to rewind my timeline here. I'm going to set a keyframe and then just grab this cube and move it to the right here. Easy peasy. We're going to go into our stage here. We have 2 keyframes and our animation. Since we created an animation from scratch, it automatically created what's called a director here. And there are several things that we can do within this director. Within this director, we can add what's called events. And if we highlight the director, there's a little button that becomes active up within our stage window. And it's called the Add Stop Tag button. And we can place our red timeline marker wherever we want within our timeline. And if we click that button, it's going to add it on the director wherever our red timeline was placed. And you can see that it creates a little triangle here, and when we click it, we can highlight it, it turns orange. Now that it's highlighted, we have options over here in the right. Now first, we have a name here, so we could call this any name we want. You just type in a name. We also have a time, which you can adjust right here, and that will slide that stop bar either left or right. It's the same as clicking within the director here on your mouse and just dragging it within the stage that way. Now below that, it tells us what we're actually adding. And when we clicked it to add a stop, it automatically by default added a stop point. And you can see that our stop is highlighted here. So what that means is that when we hit play within our animation, our cube is going to reach that stop point and then stops. And that means we need to hit the continue animation button to have it continue on. So why would you use a stop point? So if we had a separate animation here, and we're going to come into our cube here, right click on it within the stage and add a rotation animation. You can see that it adds 2 keyframes. I'm going to select my second keyframe and just add a Y rotation. So I'm going to come in here and just type in 360, and you can see that it filled in the line between the keyframes, meaning that we have an animation now. If I hit play, it starts to rotate, but it hits that stop point and stops. If I wanted it to either continue on or to rotate while one part stops, I can separate it out. So what we can do is add a new director here, and we'll just right click and we'll rename this one, and we'll call this one rotation. We're going to slide our rotation animation into there. And now you can see how our stage is set up. The stop bar is only affecting our default director. And if we want to rename this default, we'll call this one position. So now our stop point is only going to affect the position, but the rotation is going to keep going. So if we rewind our timeline, and now that we have multiple directors, we need to make sure that they're all selected when we play it. So I'm going to use our director editor here to play it. And I hit play, and you can see that it plays the animation, but the position stops and the rotation keeps going. So we hit play again, the position stops, and then it keeps rotating. If we hit the continue button, it will continue on with its position. So that's how you might use a stop point. And we have additional options over here too. So if you don't want it to stop, we also have what's called a tag. So a tag only shows the position along the timeline and does not stop the animation. We can also add a local stop. And notice when we change that, it also changes the icon here, and it only affects the director it is placed on. So if we come down and add another animation here, now we're going to add a scaling animation, and again it places 2 keyframes here. So we'll click on the second keyframe. We'll just scale our X scaling on the single X scale. And now I'm going to actually throw this in its own director as well. I'm going to right click it to rename it. We'll call this one scaling. And I'm going to take my scaling animation and slide it into that director. Now I'm going to take this director and make it a subdirector of my position. So now if I close my position director, you can see that we only have 2 main directors and there's a subdirector. The scaling director is a subdirector of my position. And now this local stop right here will only affect the director it is placed on. So even though our scaling is a subdirector, our local stop is only going to affect the position. So if we rewind our timeline again, we'll select all and hit play. What it does is it reaches that particular point in the position, but all the other directors play. Now if I were to change this one back to just a stop, it's going to affect the subdirector as well. So that's the difference between a stop and a local stop. What's more, we can also add a pause. So if we click a pause, the icon changes again, and it's telling you with this black bar which two directors it's going to affect. With a pause, we can actually have it pause for a couple seconds, however long we want, and we can just type in the length here, and that's going to pause the position and the scaling of the cube when we hit play. So it's going to get there, it's going to pause for however long you set, and then it's going to continue on with the animation. Finally, we have a next scene button down here, which marks the position where a scene ends, and the next scene should start automatically. Further down, you have your direction buttons. By default, it's set to both, and this event is valid to both the normal and reverse directions. And then we have a normal, which is valid when the animation direction is set to normal or forward. And then we have reversed, and this is only valid when the animation direction is reversed. So make sure that you select your direction as well when you're using your stop tags, local stops, or pauses.